So today is the last day of renovation spraying. If you've been following this process, you know we've been doing the renovation, the Roundup applications about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks apart. And this is the third one, mainly on Bermuda yards we want to convert over to Fescue. So I was getting ready to head out, and I just wanted to take a second and show you kind of my arsenal of herbicides that we use now. Here's the disclaimer. This is tall fescue, turf type tall fescue. We've got some warm season Bermuda things over here, but I am, as far as ryegrass and bluegrass go, I am by no means educated enough to tell you that you can use these on those grass types. I have no idea. I deal with 99% tall fescue, and that's what I know, so that's what we're going to do. Now, my take on herbicides is this: keep it as simple as possible. I like to keep life simple. I like to keep work simple. I like to keep money simple. I like to keep everything simple. So basically, I know you've seen these. This is a very, very popular one, the Trimec brand. This is basically a knockoff of it, Vessel. 3-way herbicide. You can see right here that the label is nearly identical other than a few little things. But basically we use this in the springtime, early spring, meaning anywhere from January up until May. We would use this one herbicide. When it's cooler, we actually mix triclopyr with this to get things like hairy bittercress and wild violet and things like that show up kind of early spring. So this is a great herbicide. I think the rate is a ½ gallon per acre, and then we usually run about 12 ounces of triclopyr per acre with it. So we get into the summertime, warm, hot temperatures, and we slide over to Escalade. I'm a major fan of this stuff. There's really not a broadleaf weed out there in a fescue yard that this won't smoke. Virginia buttonweed, it may take a couple of applications. That would be the only one that's coming to mind that we see around here. But as far as clovers, dandelions, oh my gosh, Lespedeza, spurge. This even smokes spurge. The way we use it, we do use it full strength, meaning well, here you go. Here's a little list: black medic, chickweed, clover, oxalis, thistles. It's real good at stemmy, with like woody stem type things, kind of like thistles, or kind of like Lespedeza. It's kind of got like a woody stem feel to it, a hard stem, where, you know, clover has a softer, more pliable stem to it. Even though this will work on it. This isn't quite as hardcore of a herbicide as this. So this, you know, this is going to be a little stronger to act on some tougher weeds. But we love Escalade. Our crabgrass choice of herbicide is the Drive Accelerate. Honestly, I don't know that let me think a minute. I don't think we've sprayed any of this year, simply because majority of years we don't have crabgrass issues. We never see crabgrass. On occasion we might get a little breakthrough around edges and things like that, and we'll spot spray with this, but for the most part we don't have outbreaks of crabgrass because we do our pre-emergence correctly, and we'll talk about that when it's time. Nut sedge, we like Sedge Hammer, or Pro Sedge is another one. They're actually the identical You can see the House of Furon in it, 75%, and where's the other one? 75%. It's identical. My guess is they probably come off the same line. One just goes in this box and one goes in this box. It just depends on which one's cheaper is which one we buy. And of course, you know all about Pilex. You've heard me rave about that. This will get some other weeds other than Bermuda. But this is what we use to take Bermuda out of Fescue. And something I'm new to the game in is tenacity. I've got a buddy, Chris, up in the mountains of North Carolina that I've been picking his brain on. He swears by this stuff. So that's the whole reason I kind of went through these herbicides, was leading up to this. Today, I've got two quarts an acre of Roundup, my surfactant, and tenacity. We're going to run a full rate of tenacity, which is 8 ounces per acre. And I'm not interested in the post-emergent qualities in this, meaning post-emergent means the weed comes out of the ground, you visually see the weed with your eyes, then you spray it after the weed comes up. I'm more interested in the pre-emergent qualities of this, meaning we're going to catch the weed before it germinates, pre-germination. So that's why we're going to use tenacity today on these renovation yards. And I've got a little bit of the, let's see, where was it at here? New seedings and new lawn establishment. Says you can't use it on fine fescue, but other than that, I would not use this on Bermuda grass. I think it will do a little more damage to Bermuda than you might want, from what I can read. You can see here it basically puts down a barrier somewhat on the soil and stops weeds from germinating, but it will allow your fescue seed to come up, which is absolutely incredible to me that this technology even exists. Because how in the world does it determine whether it's a weed seed or a grass seed? I don't know the science behind it, but I'm trusting Chris today with about $10,000 worth of renovation work. So Chris, boy, you better be right, man. Well, I'm coming up to the mountains looking for you. So we're going to use this. It's in the tank, and we'll see how that works. We're going to get out here and I'll show you a couple of these yards, but by now you ought to know what they look like. They're brown and they're dead. Let me stop myself just a minute. These people don't pay me to do this. I use their products because I like their stuff, because historically they have worked for me. But on occasion, you'll run across some weird, crazy weed that none of this stuff will control. Then you have to go into some more super dedicated weed controls. And I'm drawing a blank right now. I really don't have a good example, simply because these herbicides right here, they work well for us. And typically, for the most part, we keep the turf thick enough to where we shade out the ground. And that's a great note. The absolute #1 best weed control on the planet is a thick, dense, tall stand of fescue. Why is that? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Let me get over here so I can see you. The answer is very simple. It's all about the sunlight. Let me cut this light off right here. Hang on. It's all about the sunlight hitting the soil. That's what this boils down to. If you could block the sun from hitting the soil, the weeds probably wouldn't come up. But obviously we can't do that, because you gotta have sun for photosynthesis. But it's all about the sun hitting the soil and heating that soil up so it germinates the grass seed. Well, if you keep that fescue nice and tall and it shades out the sun, the ground, that's how you eliminate the majority of weeds. The sunlight can't penetrate through the turf canopy, so it can't actually germinate the grass seeds. So that's the best weed control on planet Earth, by hands down, no question about it. But when you get disease and drought stress, stuff like that, and the turfs, you go from thick in the spring to thin during the summer because you don't have enough water on the yard, or you don't have a good disease control plan in place, then that opens up the canopy and allows the sunlight to penetrate down in there and germinate those weeds. Also, it breaks down your pre-emergent that you put down way back in the spring or late winter, early spring. That sunlight deteriorates that chemical, the prodiamine or whatever you're using. It deteriorates it, so it breaks down that protection. That's why you get those late summer weeds pop in. So thick turf. That's why I don't ever see any weeds in my yard. I rarely see one weed in my yard because I just keep the yard so stinking thick. The weeds don't stand a chance. So here's a good example. If anybody knows how to alleviate this, let me know. This is liriope. I think it's big blue liriope, monkey grass. And you can see it's had 2 full strength glyphosate apps on it and nothing. You see the rest of the yard's pretty much toast. I'm gonna do the tenacity on it today, and need to know how to get rid of this. If someone doesn't have a good idea, a chemical version that won't hinder seed germination, because we're gonna seed this yard in about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I'm probably gonna get some of my crews to come out and just dig. It's only a few little patches. We'll probably end up just digging it out with a shovel anyway. So Roundup doesn't kill monkey grass. Isn't that something? Tough stuff. I'd say this is about as dead can get. She's checked out. What we've done is had the homeowner or the person that cuts this yard come in after each time the yard goes brown. You sprayed it one time, turns good and brown, and they come in and they mow it down low, and then we done it the second time, and then that second mowing they scalp it, meaning that I can see dirt all in through here, because we don't want anything obstructing the new grass seed from coming up. Of course, our aerovators are going to play a big role in that, because it's going to turn this, it's just going to plow this up, basically the top 2 or 3 inches. So here's a good example of why we come back and do this last spray. Look at that. I really can't make out what that is right now, but it's a little young broadleaf coming in. So that Roundup and tenacity together should knock that out. And my hopes for the tenacity is to not allow any more of that stuff to come in for the next 2 or 3 weeks until we get back out here and actually put the seed in the ground and keep the weeds from coming up while the grass is getting established. So looking forward to seeing how that stuff. Hey, don't forget about that question and answer thing with me and Matt Martin tomorrow. I want to say it's between 3 and 4. I sent him a text to find out, but he hadn't texted me back yet. So I'm thinking 3 or 4 o'clock, 1 or 2. So I'm looking forward to that. That ought to be a blast. Talk to you soon.